Welcome to the 4Heroes podcast. Today's episode was recorded live at the 4Heroes Huddle. Chaplain Frank Mercer continues teaching through the book of Exodus. In Exodus 15, the Israelites travel through the desert for 3 days and become thirsty and bitter. When they find water, it's also bitter, reflecting the condition of their hearts. But God intervenes and makes it sweet. Not only that, but a short 7 miles away, there is a better place waiting for the people of God. It's a message of hope for anyone who's struggling, for anyone who is looking for better days ahead.
Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. I'm glad that you're here. We are moving forward in the narrative. The Israelites have crossed the Red Sea as of Exodus 14. I told you last week that the beginning of Exodus 15 is this really sweet worship song all about how God has come through for them. And I said, read it for homework. This is going to be one of those homework assignments that I just gave you. I'm not even going to follow up. I'm not even going to ask you. I'm not going to test you. In fact, I'm not really even going to talk about it. But it is a beautiful reminder that trouble comes. We should not panic. We should praise. What do you think of that? We shouldn't worry, Chosie. We should worship. That's what we should do. Yeah, and then that's all the acronyms I have. But I actually want to jump out of that, get my phone to behave here, jump out of that into the very next part of the narrative, starting in verse 22 of Exodus 15. If you want to look at your Bible, we're going to be looking at just a few verses this morning. I told you last week, I feel like we've been talking about God's greatest hits. We did, the burning bush, and we did the plagues, and we did the Red Sea crossing, and it's all this big, heavy stuff. It's like you're taking this big, huge story, and you're just trying to cram it into, 15 or 20 minutes to talk about in our group. This is just 5 verses, but powerful, powerful stuff. I don't know how you feel about country music. I know how I feel about country music. It speaks to my soul, especially stuff written before about 1985. There is this great song that I'm not going to sing for you. It's this great song called Lemon Drops by a group called Pistol Annies. And this song says, "My life is like a lemon drop. I'm sucking on the bitter to get to the sweet part, because I know there are better days ahead." You're going to know why I read that in a minute. Exodus 15, starting in verse 22, Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. And for 3 days, they traveled into the desert without finding water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink its water because it was bitter. That's why the place is called Marah. Marah means bitter. When they come to this place in the desert where finally they find water after 3 days, I'm told, I haven't experienced this, but after 3 days without water, your body will start talking to you about it. I mean, you start to break down. They finally find water, but the water is undrinkable. It's bitter, which is just absolutely crushing to the people. They see it on the horizon. There's water. Our problems are solved. Our trouble is over. You ever feel like that? Like there's a check in the mail. Or, whatever, the thing that you're hoping for, the thing that you think you need, and then you get to it and discover that it's not what you thought it was. Yeah. So they're dealing with all this bitterness. The bitterness in the water and the bitterness in their hearts. And they're going to talk about it. They're going to blame the leader. Verse 24, so the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" One of the reasons I've been so excited about talking about Moses is because there are so many leadership lessons in Moses' life. And this is an important leadership lesson. If you're the leader, Count on this, 100% of the time, people are going to grumble. And they're going to grumble about you. They are. They're going to grumble. Like I said, in fairness, it's been 3 days without water. It's not a matter of comfort. It's a matter of survival. This water's bitter. It's useless. What are we supposed to drink? But here's the real leadership lesson. Moses doesn't grumble back. Now, we'll see as we talk about Moses' story, he's not this great 100% of the time. Moses is kind of working on a short fuse that gets lit a lot, and he gets mad, and he gets mad at these people who are grumbling. But this time, he takes a deep breath. Verse 25 says, "Then Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink." Other translations say the Lord showed him a tree. He took a branch from that tree, threw it in the water, and the water became fit to drink. We'll get back to that, but note for now, Moses did not grumble back to the people. They grumbled at him. He didn't grumble. He cries out to the Lord in a desperate time. God is my only hope. And God then points to this tree. Moses takes a branch from the tree. He throws it in the water. The water becomes sweet. Is there a tree that makes bitterness sweet? The Bible is full of trees. All of them pointing to, reminding you of, foreshadowing, aftershadowing, directing you to one tree, the cross. There is a tree for you, a tree for me that changes our bitterness into sweetness. It gives life where there was death. And the Lord issued a ruling, an instruction for them, and put them to the test. He said, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commands and keep all the decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. I am Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals. A God who can heal my bitterness. A God who can heal my brokenness. And that's one of the beautiful promises in the book of Exodus. He is the God who heals. And then verse 27, they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped near the water. They were in desert for 3 days. They get to Marah, where there's water, but we can't drink it. And I don't know how long they stayed at Marah before God performed this miracle and made the water sweet. But I think it's really interesting, it's kind of human nature, that out of 5 verses we've read here, 4 of them are about the journey to and the encampment at Marah, where there was all this bitterness, and only 1 of them is about Elim, which sounds like a resort. 12 springs and 70 palm trees. In comparison, Elim sounds like I'm going to Disney World. That sounds great. Why do we always remember the worst days more? Like, I can tell you all about the bad, but the good days, it's like that. It just gone. We got so much more to say about the bad days. And I'll tell you something else. You look on a map, there's only 7 miles between these 2 places. They left Marah, and within a day's journey, they were in Elim. 7 miles between the 2. Less than a day's walk. Now, they don't know that. They don't know how close to the resort they are. They just think they're stuck in the desert and they're grumbling, what are we going to drink? But they've stopped. They've stalled out in this bitter place, which is what we do a lot of times. We get to a place in life, and whether it's relational or vocational or financial or health Whatever the situation or circumstance or season is, it is a season of bitterness, and we just stall out there. We stop. And part of why we stopped is because we got bitter. But you don't know how much better life could get if you just kept walking. It's another 7 miles, people. They had no idea how close they were. They're just around the corner. A lot of people quit in Mara. A lot of people quit in their bitterness. When if they just kept walking around the corner, then you could get into this sweet place. You could get to Elam. And I guess this is really fresh on my mind because last week, less than 2 miles from my house, 19-year-old male stood in his father's front yard. He had a phone in one hand and a gun in the other. And on the phone, he called 911. He talked to my friend Courtney. She answered, Fayette County 911, what's the address of your emergency? He gave her the address. And she said, what's the nature of the emergency? He said, I need you to send somebody right away. She said, do you need police? Do you need medical? You need fire? Who do you want me to send? He said, it doesn't matter who you send. Just send them now. And he hung up on her. And then he put the gun to his head and he pulled the trigger. He bled out in the front yard at his father's house. Everybody who loved him, cared about him, they're devastated. His older brother died 4 years ago as a result of a traffic accident on Adams Road. Family had 3 kids. They have a daughter remaining. 2 of the 3 are gone. At young ages, way too young. Way too young. And I made my way around fire stations and talked to the paramedic and, oh my goodness, the EMT who's driving the paramedic is brand new, and they had a third rider with them who's a student in our EMT school. And being a third rider means that you're just riding, just watching, shadowing. That kid had never seen a dead body before. This is his first one. And he rode in the back of the ambulance all the way to the hospital with this young man. Courtney, devastated, asking herself, was there anything I could have said or done differently? Everybody asking themselves. And I don't know what his reasons were, but I wish I could have had just a minute with him. Just a minute to say, yes, you're living in this bitter place. And I know it feels like this bitterness is never going to end. I know it feels like the pain will never stop. But I'm telling you that trouble is temporary. I'm telling you that there is a tree that takes away our bitterness. The cross of Jesus. On that cross, he bore our pain so that we could be free. And even if you're going through a bitter season in your life, man, if you'll give it one more day, if you'll give it one more week, if you'll give it one more month, if you'll give it one more year, you may find that you're in Elam, that you're not in a bitter place anymore, you're in a better place. And you'd be so glad that you waited. Give it another day. And listen, I know I'm sitting here with you, and there may be nobody in our group who would say, man, I've been there. I've been in that bitter place that I thought was never going to end. So much so that I was ready to end it myself. But I suspect every one of us has been there. Every one of us has been there where we thought about that. I've been there where I thought about that. Give it another day. Give it another week. Give it another month. Because once you take that irretrievable step, there's no getting back. I think about my friend Ed, who will be 5 years ago this October. Ed hung himself. And I'm going to tell you that the moment he stepped off of that bench and hung there by that rope tied to the rafters in his basement, in my heart of hearts, I believe he immediately regretted that irretrievable decision, but there was nothing that he or anyone could do for him. Don't die in that place that's so bitter when life is just about to get better. There is a God who loves you. Jehovah Rapha, the God who heals your bitterness, the God who heals your brokenness. And for now, we just got to do like the Pistol Annies, know that life is like a lemon drop. And I'm just going to keep on sucking on the bitter to get to the sweet part. Because I know there are better days ahead. Better days are coming. That's all I got to say about that. Let me pray for you.
So a significant portion of today's talk had to do with two real places. Mara is the bitter place, and Elam, which is a better place. God did an amazing miracle in turning bitter water to sweet in Mara. But Mara's not the final destination. Elam's not the final destination either. It's just a better place than Mara was, and it's so close. Remember, towards the end, we talked about how Elam is less than a day's journey from Mara, 7 miles. Point being that if you're in a place in your life right now that feels dark, bitter, maybe you're even having self-destructive thoughts, don't act on those thoughts. I want to encourage you to give it another day, give it another week, give it another month. You're going to move from that bitter place to a better place. God intends to move your journey along in that direction. Even while Frank was saying this to the group this morning, it was clear, looking into people's eyes, that the struggle of being in a bitter place is very real. Very, very real to a lot of our listeners. I just want to say in closing that for Heroes, we have a number of resources that we could connect you with if you're interested. If you feel like you're in that bitter place, that dark place, you're having self-destructive thoughts, and you just need a helping hand, we can offer a helping hand to help you get through that darkness. If you're not just having self-destructive thoughts, but you're actually thinking of suicide, formulating a plan, please don't hesitate to contact us right away. You can email us at info@4ourheroes.org. That's the number 4, ourheroes.org. Or call us at 770-681-5964. Text us at 770-681-5964. And let me offer this as well. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts today, please immediately contact the Georgia Crisis Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.